What's going on, gamers? It's Phil here from Beneath the Veil, and welcome back to the channel. The team and I hope that you are enjoying the New Frontiers update. Today I wanted to go over the new Universal group of heroes that was added in 7.33. The general concept behind this attribute group, as I'm sure everybody is aware, is these are heroes that like to build a range of items that dip into all three attributes, and this is an attempt by Valve to level them out and make them a bit more consistent in their performance based on itemization. But it can be a little bit confusing to wrap your head around the numbers of these heroes, and their laning and item progression differs slightly just due to the way that the numbers work for them. So without further ado, let's dive into it, and you'll see that I've got Clockwork here, who is now a universal hero, and then I've got an Earthshaker, a Hoodwink, and a Crystal Maiden, just to demonstrate some of the differences between them all. So as you can see here, first thing to note is that they have actually changed the layout at a glance over the HUD. So you've now got your average base attack damage, you have your attack speed, you have your armor, you have your magic resist, and then you have your movement speed, all displayed at a glance. If you want to check what the percentage of your armor resist is without needing to physically open it and go and have a look, you can just hold Alt and it will show you the percentage of your armor resist. So at the moment, base Clockwork has 15%. So the way that these heroes work, if you then go and have a look at all of the numbers, you'll see that based on the attribute gains, so he's got 27 strength, he's got 13 agility, he's got 18 intelligence, and that all combines to 58. Then if you multiply 58 by 0.6, that will give you 35. It's technically 34.8, but they just round up. And then if you have a look through his individual gains per level, you'll see that he gains 2.8 strength, he gains 1.8 agility, and gains 1.3 intelligence. So the total of all of those is actually 5.9 gain in stats per level. Then if you multiply that out by 0.6, then you'll get 3.5. So the important thing to know about these universal heroes is that in terms of itemization, they will pretty much always want anything that gives them a balance of all three stats. That will tend to, for example, if you were to pick up Iron Branches, Circlets, Crowns, the new Diadems, or Ultimate Orbs, they will give you 80% more return than they will for any primary stat hero. Because you're getting plus 10 to every stat and then multiply that out by 0.6, so you end up getting essentially a gain of 1.8, whereas a primary stat hero would get a return of 1. As part of preparation for this video, me and a member of the team went through all of the stat-based items and did all the calculations for damage increases for universal heroes, and then we went through and broke down by individual attribute groups, so one for universal, one for strength, one for agility, and one for intelligence. We actually went through and calculated the gold spent per damage, essentially, to find out what the most efficient pickups were for every hero. That leads to a couple of really interesting things in terms of itemization in the early game. What you will always want to be considering is that for universal heroes, Iron Branches give you a total base damage increase of 1.8. That might not seem like a whole bunch because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, but you need to consider that that is to your base damage, and that is a base damage increase of 1.8, which is very close to a Fairy Fire. And there are a lot of heroes that would normally pick up a Fairy Fire for that little bit of a boost in the the first couple of minutes of a game, just to get your last hitting a little bit more consistent. So a lot of universal heroes that like to right click, you may want to consider filling out your inventory with Iron Branches, even with supports. The reason that I play Clockwork is that he likes to get up in people's faces and right click them, trap them in clogs and right click them down. So doing little boosts like that to just get a little bit more output on damage can be really, really clutch. Other things to consider is that if you are building any of the basic stat items like Wraithband, Bracer, or Mantle of Intelligence, Null Talisman, sorry, you'll always want to get the Circlet first. So if we go and have a look at Circlet, you'll see that it will give +2 to all attributes. So you need to consider that's giving any universal hero a total of 6. So if you were to multiply 6 out by 0.6, you'd be getting an increase of 3.6 base damage. Again, that might not seem like much, but compared to primary Gauntlet of Strength or Slippers of Agility or Mantle of Intelligence, it's going to be that little bit more of a boost for a universal hero, whereas if they were to get just the primary stat, then they would only be getting 1.8 increase in base damage. So whenever possible, every time you see something that increases all stats evenly, know that it's way better for you. So yeah, that's a really interesting thing. With Circlets, you always want to get those over your other minor components. If you go to crowns, you're pretty much always, so you see for something like Veil of Discord, it increases all attributes, and Veil is just a really good item in general for increasing magic damage, especially in the early phase of the game, now that there's a lot more team fighting. Solar Crest gives you +6 to everything. Meteor Hammer gives you +8, so getting the +4 to everything ends up being really efficient for 450 gold, 12 multiplied by 0.6, so you're getting 7.2 increase in base damage as opposed to any other hero would get 4. So yeah, anytime you see these items, things like diadems as well, anytime you've got anything that builds out of something that gives all stats, you pretty much always want to be picking it up first. Even like ultimate orbs, so Eye of Skadi is insanely good value for universal heroes. The Lincoln Sphere is insanely good, it also gives you a bump in damage. Interestingly, the components of Yasha, Sanj, and Kaya, on their own, you don't get as much of a return on investment as primary stat hero, but the second that you combine two of them together, so whether that be Sanj and Yasha, Kaya and Sanj, or Yasha and Kaya, all of those will give you an increase in base damage compared to a primary stat hero. So that gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of you can ignore what the strength or agility gain does per se, and then you can focus more on what the extra boosts are. So if you want extra attack speed, extra movement speed, extra health regen and lifesteal amp, or if you want mana regen amp, you want status resist, you want spell amp, you want health regen and lifesteal amp, or spell lifesteal amp, or if you want the mana regen amp, boost speed, spell amp, and lifesteal amp, as well as attack speed, those are all things to consider. One of the most slept on items, Magic Wand, is a more effective damage item for universal heroes, which is kind of amusing. So with Magic Wand, it builds out of 2 branches and then gives you +3 to all attributes. So you're essentially getting an additional Iron Branch in the 1 item slot. So again, you've got to factor in that that's giving you 3 to each attribute. So you're getting 9 attribute points in total. So if you were to multiply that out by 0.6, you get an increase in 5.4 base damage as opposed to primary stat heroes get an increase in 3. Plus you've got, the really strong mechanics of Magic Wand. Really, really efficient. Pretty much every single hero that I'm playing, if they're a universal hero, I'm always picking up a Magic Wand. Even if in the laning phase it's not a huge spellcasty lane, if I know that I'm going to start rotating and start playing into heroes that cast a lot of spells, I'll always pack a Magic Wand. It's just infinite value, every single game. Even before this patch, I'd often heal for like 1,000 plus HP every single game just out of Magic Wand charges. So yeah, I would always encourage players to get used to buying Magic Wand, get used to using it. It's really, really good return, especially for universal heroes. There are some items that will end up being just as beneficial for you as the primary stat grantor. So for example, things like Diffusal Blade, you will end up getting an increase of 15 base damage. So it's just as efficient for a universal hero to pick up a Diffusal Blade as it is for an agility hero. Similarly with the Dragon Lance, that's again, you see it's 15 and 10 and then 15 and 10. If you run the numbers, it'll work out. So you get 25, multiply it by 0.6, it ends up being 15. So it's just as beneficial for universal heroes to pick up these items as it is for agility in this case. I just wanted to highlight some big winners of the new patch. So in terms of itemization, things to consider as a universal hero are Disperser. So I did say before that Diffusal Blade ends out being the complete same in terms of damage return. When you go up to a Disperser, so if you have a look here, you see that you get 15 in agility and then 10 in. When you upgrade it to Disperser, you get an additional 5 agility. So the way this shakes out in terms of overall damage is that you lose 2 base damage as a universal hero compared to a agility, which is not huge in the scheme of things. You still get the bonus 45 damage. But yeah, I just want to highlight that as a big winner. Other big winners are Gleipnir. Gleipnir is absolutely insane for a lot of universal heroes and same with Rod of Atos. So the math on this is actually really insane. So you get 24 intelligence, you get 14 strength, and you get 14 agility. So if you multiply that out by 0.6, you actually get 31.2 base damage increase as a universal hero, as opposed to 24, 14 for the other primary attributes. So you get a huge boost in base damage just off the Atos itself, and then you get the extra 30 damage from the Gleipnir active. You get the root functionality that you already get. So yeah, Rod of Atos, really good for a lot of these heroes, something to be considered, especially with PL coming back into vogue now. Gleipnir is a soft-ish counter. Whenever PL uses Doppelganger, as soon as he comes out of the Doppelganger, if you then Gleipnir him, it roots him in place, and then normally by the time that the root is over, since the illusions haven't been able to attack anything, they will normally just disappear. So that can be a soft counter to him before he builds up a bunch of illusions. Also, the Chain Lightning proc is just a really, really good farming tool in general. Just help clear creep waves and all that rubbish. And also Harpoon. So this is just really, really good damage overall. Ignoring the 15 damage that you get, which you can see from that. 20 strength, add the 10 agility, and then add the 16 intelligence. And multiply that out by 0.6. You're getting 27.6 base damage increase, and then you're getting plus the 15 damage on top. So you're getting 42.6 total damage as a universal hero, which is better than any of the primary attribute heroes. There's all the other benefits in terms of you can attack twice from the Echo Saber, and you've got the guaranteed draw in. So Topson's been playing a lot of Harpoon Void Spirit lately. I've tried it out myself, and it feels incredibly, incredibly strong, especially with the first Astral Step in and the new proc 2 attacks. So yeah, really, really strong item for those ganking universal heroes. I haven't tried it on Clockwork yet. It would feel like a bit of a meme, to be honest. I'm curious. I've been building like Echo Saber on Brewmaster as a way to step into the Aghanim Scepter, and then I'll come back for a Harpoon, which feels pretty good after you've got your permanent Panda up. So yeah, lots of interesting heroes. I've yet to try it on heroes like Beastmaster, or Brood was nerfed into the ground, but in 7.33b has just been given a couple of boosts up as well, so I'm curious to see how she shakes out now. But yeah, one other thing I just wanted to highlight is the changes to phase boots and power treads. So with universal heroes, there is something to keep in mind in terms of the attribute gains. So this is why I got these other heroes here, just to show. If we look at Clockwork at level 1, he's got 53 base damage on average now with power treads. So you can see as I swap through power treads, that number never changes. So it's always going to be 53. The way that's calculated is that I'm currently getting 27 strength plus 10 from power treads. And then no matter where I place it, you can see that it's moving around, move to int, move to agility. It's always going to be calculated at the end there, and then it's going to increase my base damage by a certain amount. The reason you would want to buy power treads on a universal hero is that it gives you the complete freedom to benefit from any state of treads without losing out on damage. You do technically lose out 4 base damage than if you were a primary stat hero, but then a primary stat hero would have 1 base damage less than you if they were off of their main attribute. So you can see that Clockwork's got 53 no matter what. If I switch to Earthshaker, you can see that when he's on strength, he's on 64. Then the second that I swap off of strength, he drops 10 base damage. And that's because he doesn't have the strength anymore, right? Same thing with Hoodwink. It's on agility at the moment, so she's got 59. The second that it drops off into strength, she's got 49. And then same with intelligence. And then same with the Crystal Maiden again. So when she's on int, she gets an extra 10. And then the moment that she jumps off, she drops that 10 base damage. So yeah, the universal heroes get all the benefits of being in any state without having to deal with any fluxes of damage. So whereas a hero who's trying to last hit might have to switch to their primary attribute to then get the last hit and then switch back to strength, for example, to tank damage. Universal heroes don't have to worry about that. They can be a bit more set and forget depending on what they want. And that gives them the flexibility to, if they want an extra, what is now 220 HP because of the slight change to HP gain per point of strength. So it's now 22 instead of 20, changes the math slightly. So yeah, you get an additional 220 HP there. As you can see, it's jumping up. Otherwise, if you switch to int, then you do get, if you look down here at your base magic resist, you do get an extra % of magic resist. So if you're taking a bunch of spells, that might be considered. And then with agility, you get a slight increase to your base armor, as you can see here, as well as your attack speed increases by 10 as well. So these are all things to consider, is that if you want more attack speed and armor to, tank physical damage, or just to increase your farming speed, you can switch to Agi. If you want more HP pool and more HP regen, then you can switch to Strength. And if you want slightly more mana regen, as well as a slight bump in your base magic resist, then you can switch to Int. So you got a lot more freedom in how you can do it. The other thing is that there's been changes to the move speed increase depending on whether you're a ranged or a melee hero. I will just bring in phase boots for this as well, just so you can have a quick look at the differences. Phase boots, they're a set 50 movement speed regardless of whether you're ranged or melee. So you gotta remember with power treads for universal heroes, it's always 6 no matter what. So there is a deficit basically, so it's twice as efficient for ranged heroes to get phase boots if they want the bump in damage, and then for melee heroes it's 3 times as efficient. You do get 4 armor, so that is a consideration if you are just only taking physical damage in the laning phase, then you might consider going phase boots over power treads. You do get slightly more base move speed as a melee hero compared to a ranged hero, so that's another consideration, is if you aren't going to be using the phase active all of the time, you know, you want just a general slight bump of 5, then maybe power treads is better, maybe phase boots is better. There's a lot more micro decisions in the very early game in terms of catch and all that sort of stuff that you might consider. But yeah, besides that, I think that's everything. Please have a look in the description. I will link through to the spreadsheets that we've made that give all the damage breakdowns for those who are interested in the numbers. Those who aren't, fair enough. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. The team and I are always working towards new video ideas and looking how to cover areas that people haven't mentioned already. Lots to chew into with this new patch, and I'll see you in the next video.